Hello and welcome to today's episode of Spec Steppin, where we are stepping through the API web spec. In today's episode, we're going to cover the Eyedropper API. Now, just a note, this is an API that is still experimental, so I would not recommend using this on a production website. But as I've said in previous episodes that cover experimental APIs, it's a good thing to know these exist, even though they may change by the time they get fully released and ready for production. And this one is no different. So the Eyedropper APIs, a lot of you may have used an eyedropper, the eyedropper interface, when you're working with colors, like maybe in a Photoshop or an Illustrator type of application, to where you use the eyedropper and you can pick a color and get the hexadecimal or RGB value, what have you. In fact, I have a plugin on my browser that allows me to do this, and I can click on any color on a web page and see what its hexadecimal or RGB color is. I just do this because it's a quick shortcut when working on CSS, so I don't have to go through a lot of hoops to do that. I can just click on the icon, click on whatever the color I want, and boom, I've got it already on my clipboard, and I can just paste it in my CSS, that sort of thing, or on into whatever project I'm working on at the time. So this is a pretty handy little tool. Now, currently it only works in Chromium-based browsers, and has limited availability in those, as you can see here from the top. Let me just jump down here. So it works in Chrome and Edge, and that's pretty, and Opera, but Opera's not used a huge amount. But pretty much any Chromium-based browser. I'm using Brave, which is a Chromium-based browser. But again, this is pretty straightforward. All it does is allows me to pick a color, and have that color, find out what the hexadecimal number is. Now, the cool thing about this API as it stands currently is I can pick a color outside of the viewport of the browser. So let me just jump over here. So here's just a quick demo, and I'll show you the code to this when we get to that. So I just pick a color, and now I have this eyedropper, so I can pick any of these colors. So let me just put my little thing there, and boom, I've got what that blue color is. Now, let me pick it again, and I'll show you how I can go outside here, and I can choose, I'll choose this color there, and boom, I have that color there. So I can even pick the YouTube color there. So I can pick outside of the viewport, which is a pretty cool thing. So if you have like an external document or something like that, so I can even go down here, and let me go to my Visual Studio Code, and I'll pick that. Boom. So I even went outside of the browser completely, not just outside of the viewport, and was able to pick a color and have it show up. So pretty handy tool, pretty cool the way it works. Let me jump to the code. First, the HTML is pretty straightforward, nothing fancy there. I just have a button that I can instantiate the API to get it working. And then it's just a matter of picking the color. And then I just have a listener set up to show the color there in the viewport right here. So the CSS, just some basic styling just for, make it look nice for the demo. But the real magic happens here in the APIs. So first I grab my buttons, I grab the color swatch, and I grab the hex value span. So if I go back here, here's the button, here's the color swatch, which is that circle, and then the hex value span, which is hex ID. Then I have in a listener, I'm listening for the click on the color button. So when I click that, it instantiates the API. So first I instantiate it by creating a constant here and a new instance of eyedropper. Then I open the eyedropper and call the open method to activate the eyedropper tool. So the eyedropper tool is that circle with the little square. I don't know if you can see that little square gray box, so I can focus, and let me cancel that. And then, so that's the tool. So I have a constant where I'm storing the selected color here in RGB hex, and I've opened the eyedropper tool. Then I'm updating UI. So if I successfully pick a color, it populates this constant of sRGB hex, And then that becomes my color swatch, which is this circle right here, background. And then the hex value span, text content, I make the what the actual text, because the color, what it records, is it records the hex value actually, not the color itself, the hex value. And then I just console log out what the color is that picked. And then I just have some basic error handling there. And then, so if I do pick a color, I can just, let me go to my finder. I'll pick this little light blue. Boom. I've got the hex value now of my little dropper that I can use. So it's a pretty handy little API. Again, it's experimental, so I wouldn't use it in production, but I can see this when they release it being a pretty handy tool if you're doing some sort of a visual product to allow people to change colors and pick colors and things like that. Pretty handy little tool. So if you have any questions, let me know. And if not, happy stepping.